Sarah is alive. The words leave Ethan Miller's mouth before he can stop them, whispered into the darkness of his dead wife's studio. The kitchen clock behind him ticks backward once. The second hand jerks counterclockwise like a caught breath reversing itself. Outside, rain lifts from the driveway, droplets climbing back into the gray sky. He is kneeling on the hardwood floor surrounded by half-finished watercolors, a gray sweater still draped over the desk chair, the smell of turpentine and coffee and something else, something that still carries her, lingering in the cold air. His daughter Lily is knocking on the other side of the door. Her voice is small, 8 years old, and still expecting an answer. Ethan doesn't answer. He's too busy lying. "I didn't hurt her," he says, and the clock ticks back again. The pile of condolence cards on the kitchen counter reassembles itself into sealed envelopes. The lilies in the vase by the window pull their petals closed, shrinking back into buds. "I chased after her." Tick. The front door unlocks itself. The chain slides back into place. Somewhere in the house, a phone stops ringing. "She came home." Tick. The studio light flickers. The shadows on the wall rearrange themselves. Ethan can feel it working, can feel the universe bending backward because he has finally figured out what this terrible gift demands of him. Every lie buys him 1 minute. Every untruth, every evasion, every "I'm fine" he never should have said, every "we're okay" he used to protect himself from the pity in other people's eyes. The accident never happened. Tick. His chest is heaving now. Sweat drips down his temple. The clock on the wall, Sarah's grandmother's clock, the one with the cracked glass face, is spinning backward faster, the hands blurring past 11, 10, 9. He can feel the afternoon light outside the window shifting, the sun climbing backward across the sky. He can feel the world reversing itself around him. And somewhere in the house, Lily is still knocking. But let me show you how he got here. Let me show you the kitchen, 5 days earlier, when none of this had begun. The morning after Sarah's funeral, Portland was crying. Not dramatically, just a steady, patient drizzle that seemed to understand it had nowhere else to be. Ethan stood at the stove in sweatpants and a button-down he'd forgotten to unbutton the night before, watching an egg solidify in the pan. He'd been up for 47 hours. He knew this because he'd counted. 47 hours since the police captain had taken off his hat on the front porch. 47 hours since Lily had appeared at the top of the stairs in her rabbit pajamas, asking why there were strange men in the living room. The egg was overdoing it. He flipped it too late, watched the yolk break, and felt something in his chest crack along the same fault line. Lily sat at the kitchen table in those same rabbit pajamas. She hadn't changed them since Tuesday. It was now Friday. Ethan had not yet figured out how to address this without making everything worse. The chair across from Lily was empty. Sarah's chair. The one with the cushion she'd restuffed twice because she refused to buy new furniture. The one where she'd sat every morning for 8 years, drinking coffee that went cold while she sketched in her notebook. Lily stared at that chair like it might answer a question she hadn't yet figured out how to ask. Ethan slid the broken egg onto a plate, walked it to the table, and sat down in his own chair, the one that faced the window, so he could watch the driveway while he ate. He'd spent 8 years watching that driveway for Sarah's car. He wasn't sure how to stop. "Eat," he said. Lily didn't move. "Lily." "There's a spot on the ceiling," she said. He looked up. There was. A water stain shaped like a rabbit. He'd never noticed it before. Sarah must have noticed it. Sarah noticed everything. "Dad." Lily's voice was careful in a way that made his throat close up. "Is Mom still coming home?" The words hit him like a door slamming on his fingers. He had practiced for this. He had lain awake in their bed, in the bed where Sarah's scent was already fading from the pillow, already being replaced by the sterile smell of laundry detergent, and rehearsed what he would say. "No, sweetheart. She's not." He had promised himself he would say the truth. He had promised himself he would not protect Lily from reality, because reality was all they had left. But looking at her face, at the way her small hands gripped the edge of the table, at the hope still flickering behind her red-rimmed eyes like a candle someone had forgotten to blow out, he couldn't do it. "No, sweetheart," he heard himself say. "But she's okay now." The kitchen clock ticked backward. Ethan blinked. The egg was back in the pan, whole again, yolk unbroken. The rain outside reversed direction, droplets climbing from the gutter back into the clouds. Lily's lips were closing around a question she hadn't yet asked. Is Mom still coming home? He stared at the clock. The second hand was moving forward again, normal, steady, like nothing had happened. Dad? Lily asked. He set the plate down. The same plate, the same broken egg, because apparently even his failures reset themselves. She's okay now. He had meant it as comfort. He had meant it as the kind of soft lie parents told children to buy them another hour of childhood. But the universe, or whatever the hell was happening, had treated it like a debt, and it had taken back the minute he'd spent pretending. Dad, is Mom still coming home? He tried again. She's in a better place. The clock ticked backward. The egg reformed. The rain reversed. Lily's question reset. Ethan's hands started shaking. He looked at his daughter, at her small, hopeful, grieving face, and understood for the first time that the universe had stopped allowing him the luxury of protection. No, he said. She's not coming home. The clock kept moving forward. The rain kept falling. Lily's face crumpled, and she put her head down on the table and cried the way 8-year-olds cry, with her whole body, with her small shoulders heaving, with sounds that came from somewhere deeper than grief. Ethan sat there. He did not say don't cry. He did not say it'll be okay. He did not say she's in a better place or she's not in pain anymore or any of the other things he had practiced, because now he understood that those things were not true in the way the universe seemed to care about. They were comforts. And comforts, apparently, were lies. He reached across the table and put his hand on Lily's back. She did not push him away. She did not lean into him either. They stayed like that, touching but separate, together but alone, while the rain washed the rest of the morning down the gutters. He tested it over the next 24 hours. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to understand the shape of the cage he was now trapped in. The neighbor, Mrs. Castellano, came by with a casserole at 11. She stood on the porch in her gardening clogs, her face arranged in that careful mask people wear when they're about to say something they know won't help. How are you holding up, Ethan? We're holding up, he said. The clock ticked backward. He was back in the kitchen, the casserole dish still in her hands, the question still hovering in the air. How are you holding up, Ethan? I don't know, he said. The clock kept moving. Mrs. Castellano's mask slipped for just a second, surprise, maybe, or discomfort, before she recovered. Well, the lasagna's in the freezer. Call if you need anything. He closed the door and leaned his forehead against the wood. The school called it too. Lily's teacher, Ms. Hartwell, spoke in that same careful voice, the one that said I've been trained for this but no training actually prepares you. We just wanted to check in. Lily's been very quiet, crying in class. We have a counselor available if you think she might need someone to talk to. She's just tired, Ethan said. Tick. The clock reversed. He was back at the beginning of the call. She's just tired, he said again, because he was an idiot, because he hadn't learned yet. Tick. The third time, he sat in silence for a full 10 seconds before answering. The empty kitchen hummed around him. The refrigerator motor kicked on. Somewhere upstairs, Lily was supposed to be napping, but he could hear her footsteps, small and restless, pacing the length of her bedroom. She's not just tired, he finally said into the phone. Her mother died 5 days ago. She's grieving. I don't know if she needs a counselor. I don't know what she needs. I don't know what I need. Ms. Hartwell was quiet for a moment. That's honest, she said. Honest. The word felt foreign, like a language he'd once spoken but had forgotten how to pronounce. By the third day, he had stopped answering the phone. Not because he was avoiding people, though he was, but because every ring was a potential trap. How are you? Are you managing okay? Do you need anything? All of them questions that expected lies in return. All of them questions that, answered truthfully, would require him to say, I'm not okay. I'm not managing. I need my wife back, and since I can't have that, I need everyone to stop talking to me. So he let the calls go to voicemail. He let the messages pile up, 37 of them by Thursday morning, most from Sarah's mother, Diane, whose voice grew more desperate with each call. Ethan, we just want to hear Lily's voice. Ethan, please call us back. Ethan, we lost her too. He listened to each message with the phone pressed to his ear and his eyes fixed on the refrigerator, where a drawing of a fox and a bird was held to the door by a magnet shaped like a pineapple. Lily had drawn it last spring. Sarah had cried when she saw it, happy tears, the kind Ethan had never fully understood until he became a parent. He did not call Diane back. Lily noticed. Of course she noticed. She was 8, not blind. She watched him press the red button on the voicemail screen, watched him set the phone face down on the counter, watched him walk to the sink and stand there without turning on the water. That was Grandma, Lily said. Yes. Can I talk to her? Ethan looked at his daughter. She was wearing the same rabbit pajamas. He should wash them. He should wash a lot of things. He should probably shower himself. But the thought of standing under hot water with nothing to do but think felt like a kind of torture he wasn't ready for. Not right now, he said. It was true. He didn't know when, but not right now was true, and the clock didn't move. Lily nodded like she understood something. She didn't, not really, but she nodded anyway, and then she took her backpack and went to her room, and Ethan stood in the kitchen and tried to remember the last time he'd said something true without having to check himself first. The studio was at the end of the hallway, past Lily's room and the bathroom and the linen closet where Sarah had organized the towels by color. Ethan had not opened the door since the accident. He had not even looked at it directly, had trained his eyes to slide past it, to treat it like a wall, to pretend it was not there. Lily did not have that skill. On the 5th day, or maybe the 6th, time had started to blur into something shapeless and gray. She stood in front of the studio door with her hand on the knob. Dad, she called. I need the fox picture. Ethan was in the living room, staring at the television without turning it on. What fox picture? The one Mom drew. The one with the fox and the bird. We're making memory boxes in class, and I want that one. His stomach turned over. Not today, Lily. When? He almost said soon. The word was right there, on the tip of his tongue, a tiny lie designed to buy him time. Soon wasn't a promise. Soon wasn't even specific. But it wasn't true either, because he didn't know when he'd be able to open that door, didn't know if he'd ever be able to open it. I don't know, he said. The clock kept moving. The truth, even the ugly, useless truth, cost him nothing. Lily's hand fell away from the knob. Her face did something complicated, disappointment mixed with understanding mixed with something that looked like fear. Not of him. Of the door. Of what was behind it. Okay, she said and went back to her room. Ethan sat in the dark living room and thought about what was behind that door. He had been in the studio exactly once since Sarah died. The night of the funeral, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, after the last of the neighbors had gone home, after the house had settled into that hollow silence that follows death like a shadow. He had opened the door, stood in the doorway, and looked. The watercolors were still out. The brushes were still in the jar. Sarah's gray sweater, her favorite, the one she'd had since college, the one with the hole in the left elbow, was draped over the back of her chair like she'd just stood up and would be right back. He had closed the door and not opened it again. But he remembered what was in there. He remembered the half-finished children's book on her desk, The Fox and the Bird, traveling through a forest that changed colors with every page. He remembered the acceptance letter from the art school, the one she'd gotten 3 weeks before she died, the one she'd been so excited about she'd actually jumped up and down in the kitchen like a child. He remembered the fight. It had been a Tuesday. A normal Tuesday, or as normal as Tuesdays got in a house with a second-grade homework and a wife who was trying to figure out how to tell her husband she wanted to go back to school full-time. Sarah had laid out the acceptance letter on the kitchen table, next to the bills and the permission slips and the grocery list. They have a program for working parents, she'd said. Evenings. Weekends. I could start in the fall. Ethan had been looking at the bills. The mortgage. The car payment. The orthodontist bill for the braces Lily didn't need yet but would eventually. You really think now is the time? Sarah's smile had flickered. When is the time, Ethan? When Lily's in college. When I'm 60? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He'd been tired. He'd been stressed. He'd been the kind of tired and stressed that makes you say things you don't mean, things you can't take back, Things that sit in the air between you and your wife like a smell you can't locate. Maybe if you wanted this badly, he'd heard himself say, you should have done it before we had a child. The silence that followed was the loudest silence he had ever heard. Sarah had looked at him for a long time. Not angry. Not hurt, even. Just still. Like she was seeing something she'd always known was there but had hoped she'd been wrong about. She'd picked up her keys and walked out the door. 27 minutes later, a police captain had knocked on that same door. 27 minutes later, the rain had been falling on a curved stretch of highway, and Sarah's car had hydroplaned, and the world had split open along a fault line that Ethan had helped create. He sat in the living room now, in the dark, and let himself remember. He let himself remember the way Sarah had looked at him before she left, not with hatred, not even with anger, but with something worse. Disappointment. The quiet, devastating disappointment of a woman who had just realized her husband saw her dreams as an inconvenience. He let himself remember that he had not chased after her. He let himself remember that he had stood at the kitchen window, watched her get into the car, and thought she'll calm down. He let himself remember that the last words he ever said to his wife were before we had a child, as if Lily had been a burden, as if their daughter had been something they'd survived instead of something they'd created together. He sat in the dark, and he let himself remember, and he did not lie to himself about any of it. The clock did not move. The universe, apparently, only punished lies told to other people. Lily opened the studio door on the 7th day. Ethan was on the phone with the insurance company, a call he couldn't avoid, a call that required him to say things like the policy should cover it and I'll send the paperwork and yes, I understand, none of which were lies but none of which felt true either. He'd left Lily watching cartoons in the living room. He'd been gone maybe 10 minutes. When he came back, the living room was empty. The cartoons were still playing, some bright, mindless show about animals solving problems, but the couch was empty. The blanket Lily had been wrapped in was folded on the cushion, neat and careful in a way that broke his heart. He found her in the studio. She was sitting on the floor with the gray sweater in her lap, her small fingers tracing the hole in the elbow. The watercolors were spread out around her like evidence. The unfinished children's book was open to a page where the fox and the bird were arguing under a tree, their animal faces drawn with such emotion that even without words, you could feel the tension. Lily looked up when he came in. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. Not anymore. I found this, she said, and held up a piece of paper. It was a note. Not a letter, just a scrap, torn from a sketchbook, written in Sarah's messy, urgent handwriting. I need him to believe I can be more than the woman who keeps this house from falling apart. Ethan read it 3 times. The first time, he felt nothing. The second time, he felt everything. The third time, he felt the words settle into his chest like stones, heavy and permanent and impossible to pass. When did she write this? Lily asked. I don't know. Is it about you? He should have lied. He should have said no, sweetheart, it's about something else, about work, about a friend. That was what a good father would do. That was what a protective father would do. But the universe had taken protection off the table. Yes, he said. It's about me. Lily looked at the note again. She couldn't read all of it. Some of the words were too big, too complicated, but she could read enough. More than the woman who keeps this house from falling apart. Mom was sad, Lily said. Not a question. A realization. Yes. Was she sad because of you? Ethan lowered himself to the floor. The hardwood was cold. Sarah's sweater was warm, even from a foot away. He could smell her on it. The lotion she used, the coffee she drank, something floral and familiar that made his eyes burn. We had a fight, he said. The day she died. We had a fight, and I said something I shouldn't have said, and she was sad and she left, and then... He couldn't finish. Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Dad, were you and Mom fighting before she died? The question landed like a punch. He opened his mouth to say no. Of course he opened his mouth to say no. That was what you did. That was what fathers did. You protected your children from the ugly parts, from the complications, from the truth that the people they loved were not perfect and the people they loved made mistakes. No, he said. The clock ticked backward. He was sitting on the floor again. Lily was looking at him again. The question was hanging in the air again. Dad, were you and Mom fighting before she died? It wasn't like that, he said. Tick. She wasn't upset with me. Tick. You don't need to know this. Tick. Each answer was a lie. Each lie cost him a minute. Each minute took him back to the same moment, the same question, the same small face waiting for an answer he was too much of a coward to give. The fourth time, he didn't answer at all. He stood up, walked out of the studio, and closed the door behind him. Lily didn't follow. From the other side of the door, he heard her say, "Dad?" Just that. One word. Small and confused and starting to understand something she shouldn't have to understand at 8 years old. Ethan leaned his forehead against the doorframe and closed his eyes. He stayed there for a long time. Minutes, maybe hours. The light changed outside the window. The rain started and started again. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked forward, normal and indifferent, as if it had never done anything else. And then he started thinking. Every lie cost him a minute. Every lie sent him backward, undoing the world 1 minute at a time. He had tested this. He understood the rules. He understood the cost. But what if he kept going? What if he didn't stop at 1 minute? What if he told 10 lies? 100? 1,000? What if he kept lying until the minutes stacked up like stones, until the clock spun backward past the funeral, past the hospital, past the rainy curve of highway where Sarah's car had left the road? What if he lied enough to bring her back? The thought opened inside him like a door he hadn't known was there. Behind it was something dangerous, something he should have walked away from, something a good father would have rejected without a second thought. But he was tired of being a good father. He was tired of being strong. He was tired of the truth. He opened his eyes and looked at the studio door. Sarah's clock was on the wall inside. He could hear it ticking, the same clock he'd heard 1,000 times, the one she'd wound every Sunday night, the one with the cracked glass face. He pushed the door open. Lily wasn't there anymore. She'd left the note on the floor, next to the open book, next to the watercolors and the brushes and the gray sweater that still smelled like his wife. Ethan stepped over all of it and walked to the center of the room. He looked at the clock. "Sarah is alive," he said. The clock ticked backward. He didn't stop. "I didn't hurt her. Tick. I chased after her. Tick. She came home. Tick. The accident never happened. Tick." He stood in the center of the studio and fed lies into the air like fuel into a fire. Each one cost him a minute. Each minute rewound the world a little further. The light outside the window shifted from gray afternoon to pale morning. The rain reversed, droplets climbing from the driveway back into the sky. The lilies on the kitchen counter, the ones from the funeral, the ones he'd thrown away 3 days ago, pulled their petals closed and shrank back into buds. He could feel it working. He could feel the world softening around him, becoming something that could be reshaped, something that could be unmade and remade into a version where Sarah was still alive. "I'm fine. Tick. I don't miss her. Tick. I didn't hurt her. Tick. I don't need her. Tick. I can raise Lily alone. Tick." Each lie was easier than the last. Each lie felt less like a lie and more like a prayer. "I don't want to go back. Tick. I don't love her anymore. Tick." The last one hurt the most. It wasn't true, it had never been true, but the universe didn't care about truth. The universe only cared about what he knew. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was lying. The clock spun backward faster. The hands blurred past 6, 5, 4. The light outside shifted again. Morning to night, night to evening, the sun climbing backward across the sky like it was trying to undo something. Ethan's voice cracked. His throat was raw. His eyes were streaming with tears he didn't bother to wipe away. "I don't want to be her father without you," he said. The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy, desperate, truer than anything he'd said in the past hour. The clock stopped. The world went dark. And then, slowly, like waking from a dream he hadn't known he was having, Ethan opened his eyes. He was standing in the kitchen. Not the studio. The kitchen. The one with the yellow light and the round table and the chair with the restuffed cushion. The one where Sarah had sat every morning for 8 years, drinking coffee that went cold while she sketched in her notebook. The one where she was standing right now. She was wearing the gray sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, the way she wore it when she was working. Her eyes were red, not from crying, not yet, but from the argument they just had, the one that had started in the studio and followed her into the kitchen like a dog that wouldn't stop barking. On the table between them were the art school materials, the acceptance letter, the course catalog, the schedule she'd spent weeks putting together, trying to figure out how to be a wife and a mother and a student all at once. Ethan stared at her. She stared back. Ethan? Her voice was cautious. Wary. The voice of a woman who had just been wounded and wasn't sure if the person holding the knife was going to use it again. What's wrong? You look. He crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. She was warm. She was solid. She was real. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest, could smell the lotion she used and the coffee she'd been drinking and the faint trace of turpentine that always clung to her clothes. She was alive. Don't go, he said into her hair. Please don't get in the car. Sarah stiffened. What? Please. His voice broke. Just, please. Don't leave. Don't get in the car. Don't. Ethan. She pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her hands came up to his cheeks, cupping his jaw the way she always did when she was trying to read him. You're scaring me. What happened? He couldn't answer. He was crying too hard. The tears came from somewhere deep, somewhere he'd been keeping them locked up for 7 days, for a lifetime, for all the years he'd spent pretending he was fine when he wasn't, pretending he could handle things when he couldn't, pretending he didn't need her when needing her was the only thing he'd ever been sure of. I lost you, he finally said. I lost you and I couldn't. Lily kept asking and I couldn't, and then I found out that every time I lied, time went backward and I thought if I lied enough, I could come back and fix it. Sarah's hands dropped from his face. She looked at him for a long time. Not with disbelief, not exactly. More like she was trying to decide whether to call a doctor or sit down and listen. How much did you have to drink? She asked. Nothing. Sarah, I'm not. I know how this sounds. I know. But you have to listen to me. In about 27 minutes, you're going to get in the car and drive to the store, and the roads are wet, and there's a curve on Highway 9, the one by the old oak tree, and your car is going to hydroplane, and you're going to... He couldn't say it. Sarah's expression changed. The wariness softened into something else. Fear maybe. Or the beginning of belief. How do you know about the curve? She asked quietly. Because I've been there. I've been to your funeral. I've stood in the rain while they lowered your coffin into the ground. I've watched Lily cry herself to sleep every night for a week. I've lied so many times that the universe started punishing me for it, and I don't care, Sarah, I don't care about any of it as long as you're here. She was quiet for a long time. The kitchen clock ticked forward. Normal. Steady. Ethan, she finally said, if you're lying to me right now, I'm not. She looked at him. Really looked. The way she used to look at him, back when they were young and in love and the hardest decision they had to make was what to have for dinner. Okay, she said. Good. Let's say I believe you. What do we do? He almost said we stay here. He almost said we don't leave this house. He almost said I'll keep lying until we're safe, until the accident never happened, until you never have to get in that car. But the words caught in his throat. Because somewhere, in another version of time, in another version of reality, Lily was still knocking on the studio door. That? He had left her there. He had left her in a house full of grief and unanswered questions and a mother who wasn't coming back. I don't know, he said. Sarah's hand found his. Her fingers were cold, they were always cold, but they fit between his the way they always had, like they'd been made to be there. Then let's figure it out together, she said. The kitchen light flickered. Outside, the rain reversed itself again. Droplets climbing from the driveway, from the street, from the roof, pulling back into the clouds like the world was having trouble deciding which direction time was supposed to move. Sarah looked at the window. Is that? Time is breaking, Ethan said. I pushed too hard. Came too far back. I don't know how long this will last. How long do we have? He thought about the clock in the studio. He thought about the way the hands had blurred past 6, past 5, past 4. He thought about the darkness that had swallowed him when he'd said, "I don't want to be her father without you." "Not long," he said. Sarah nodded. She pulled him to the kitchen table, sat him down in his chair, the one facing the window, and sat across from him in hers. The restuffed cushion. The one she'd refused to replace. "Tell me everything," she said. So he did. He told her about the funeral. About Lily's rabbit pajamas. About the question she'd asked at the kitchen table, the one that had started all of this. He told her about the lies, about the clock ticking backward, about the studio and the gray sweater and the note she'd left on her desk. When he got to the note, "I need him to believe I can be more than the woman who keeps this house from falling apart." Sarah looked away. "I wrote that the morning I died," she said quietly. "You didn't die. Not yet. Not here. Ethan. Not here." She looked back at him. Her eyes were wet. "Do you believe it now? That I can be more?" He reached across the table and took her hands. They were still cold. They were still hers. "I believe that I was an idiot," he said. "I believe that I was scared and tired and selfish, and that I said something unforgivable because I didn't know how to say I'm afraid of losing you in a way that didn't make me sound weak. I believe that you deserved better. I believe that Lily deserved better. And I believe," his voice broke, "I believe that I would give anything to go back and say it differently." Sarah was crying now. Quietly, the way she did when she was trying to hide it. "You can't," she said. "I know. You can't change what you said. You can't change the fight. You can't. I know." She pulled her hands free and wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her gray sweater. The hole in the elbow, the one she'd never bothered to fix, flashed pale against the dark wool. "Where is Lily?" she asked. Ethan froze. "In the other timeline," Sarah said. "The one you came from. Where is she?" He thought about the studio door. He thought about the knocking. "That? She's waiting for me," he said. "She's in the studio and she's holding your note, and she's waiting for me to come back and tell her the truth." Sarah nodded slowly. "You came back here to save me." "Yes. But you left her there." The words hit him like a door slamming on his fingers. "You didn't come back only to save me," Sarah said. Her voice was gentle. Too gentle. The kind of gentle that hurt more than shouting. "You came back because you were tired of being alive without me." He wanted to deny it. He opened his mouth to say, "No, that's not true. I came back because I love you. I came back because I couldn't stand the thought of a world where you weren't in it." But the words wouldn't come. Because she was right. "Yes," he said. The clock kept moving. Sarah reached across the table and put her hand on his cheek. Her palm was cold, but her touch was warm. It was always warm. "You cannot use loving me as a way to abandon our daughter," she said. "I'm not." "You are." She didn't say it like an accusation. She said it like a fact. Like the weather. Like gravity. You're standing in a kitchen that doesn't exist anymore, in a time that's already falling apart, trying to hold on to something that's already gone. And somewhere out there, somewhere real, Lily is waiting for you to come back. "She needs you," Ethan said. "She needs you." "Sarah, I'm not saying this because I don't love you." Her voice cracked. "I'm saying this because I do. I love you and I love her, and I need you to go home." The kitchen light flickered again. Outside, the rain stopped reversing. It just stopped, hung in the air, suspended, like the world had forgotten how to fall. "What if I don't want to?" Ethan whispered. Sarah smiled. It was the saddest smile he had ever seen. "That's not the question," she said. "The question is whether you're going to do it anyway." The clock on the wall was ticking backward again. Not fast, just a slow, steady counterclockwise march, like time was trying to be gentle about ending the world. Ethan looked at his wife. His wife, who was wearing a gray sweater with a hole in the elbow. His wife, who had written "I need him to believe I can be more" on a scrap of paper and left it on her desk. His wife, who was asking him to leave her behind. "Tell Lily something for me," Sarah said. "Tell her yourself. Come back with me. We'll figure out." "Ethan." She put her fingers over his lips. "I can't. You know I can't. I don't know anything anymore." She laughed, a small, wet sound. That's the most honest thing you've said all day. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest, over his heart. It was beating too fast. It had been beating too fast since the moment he'd opened his eyes in this kitchen. Tell her the fox book was always for her, Sarah said. Tell her I started drawing it the day she was born. Tell her the bird is her, the one who gets lost, the one who can't find her way home, and the fox is me. I was supposed to lead her back. I was supposed to. She stopped. Swallowed. Tell her we fought, she said. Tell her the truth. She's 8, Ethan. She's old enough to know that love doesn't mean never fighting. It means fighting and coming back. It means fighting and choosing each other anyway. What if she hates me? He asked. What if she finds out what I said to you, what I did, and she never forgives me? Sarah looked at him for a long time. That's not her job, she said. Forgiving you is yours. The clock ticked backward faster. The light outside the window was dimming, the afternoon collapsing into evening, into night, into something that wasn't time at all. I love you, Ethan said. I know. I should have said it more. I should have. Ethan. He stopped. Sarah leaned across the table and kissed his forehead. Her lips were warm. They were real. They were the last real thing he would feel for a very long time. Go home, she said. Our daughter is waiting. The kitchen dissolved. The light went out. And then, like waking from a dream he hadn't known he was having, Ethan opened his eyes. He was in the studio. The gray sweater was still on the chair. The watercolors were still spread across the desk. The unfinished book was still open to the page where the fox and the bird were arguing under a tree. And on the other side of the door, Lily was still knocking. Dad. Her voice was the same. Confused. Starting to understand something she shouldn't have to understand at 8 years old. Ethan looked at the clock on the wall. It was ticking forward. Normal. Steady. He had been gone less than a minute. He walked to the door, put his hand on the knob and opened it. Lily stood in the hallway with the note in her hand, the scrap of paper with Sarah's messy handwriting, the words I need him to believe I can be more still visible in the dim light. Her eyes were red. She wasn't crying, but she had been. Or she was about to. Dad, she said, were you and Mom fighting before she died? Ethan looked at his daughter. She was wearing the rabbit pajamas. They were dirty. They had been dirty for days. He should wash them. He should wash a lot of things. He knelt down so his eyes were level with hers. Yes, he said. We were. The clock kept moving. Lily's face did something complicated. Fear and relief and confusion and something that looked like the beginning of understanding. What about? He took a breath. The truth sat on his tongue like a stone. Mom wanted to go back to school, he said. To finish her art degree. To finish the book she was drawing. The one with the fox and the bird. And I was scared, Lily. I was scared about money and time and all the stupid things that don't matter as much as I thought they did. And I said something I shouldn't have said. Something mean. Something that made her sad. Lily's grip tightened on the note. What did you say? He could have lied. He could have softened it. He could have said I don't remember or it doesn't matter or let's talk about something else. But the universe had stopped punishing him for lies. The truth was its own punishment. I said she should have done it before we had you, he said. Like you were a burden. Like you were something we had to survive instead of something we built together. Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, that was mean. Yes. Did Mom forgive you? Ethan thought about the kitchen. The flickering light. The way Sarah had kissed his forehead and told him to go home. I don't know, he said. I don't think she had time. Lily looked down at the note in her hands. At her mother's handwriting. At the words she couldn't quite understand but could feel. She was sad, Lily said. Yes. Not because of me. No. Ethan put his hand on her shoulder. Not because of you. Never because of you. Lily nodded slowly. She folded the note, carefully, the way Sarah had taught her to fold letters, and tucked it into the pocket of her pajamas. Can I see the rest of her drawings? She asked. Ethan looked at the studio behind him. At the watercolors and the brushes and the half-finished book. At the gray sweater still draped over the chair, still holding the shape of the woman who had worn it. Yes, he said. Come on. They sat on the floor of the studio for 2 hours. Lily pulled out every drawing, every sketch, every half-finished page. She laid them out on the hardwood like evidence, like a puzzle she was trying to solve. The fox and the bird appeared in almost all of them, traveling through forests, crossing rivers, sitting under trees. The bird was always yellow. The fox was always orange. Why is the bird yellow? Lily asked. Because you had a yellow scarf when you were little, Ethan said. The one Grandma knit. You wore it everywhere. Mom used to say you looked like a sunflower. Lily touched the page where the bird was flying alone through rain. Is the bird lost here? I think so. Is the fox coming to find her? Ethan looked at the drawing. The fox was small in the distance, barely visible against the dark trees, but it was there. It was always there. I think the fox is trying, he said. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out another page, one he hadn't seen before, one that must have been buried under the others. The fox and the bird were together again, sitting on a branch, watching the sun rise. The bird's yellow feathers were dry. The fox's orange fur was bright. In the corner, in Sarah's handwriting, were 4 words. For Lily, who always finds the morning. Lily read the words slowly, sounding them out like she was learning a new language. When she finished, she put the page down very carefully, like it might break. She drew this for me? Yes. She drew it before she died? Yes. Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she picked up the drawing, the one with the fox and the bird on the branch, watching the sun rise, and held it against her chest. I'm going to finish it, she said. Ethan looked at her. What? The book? Mom's book? I'm going to finish it. I'm not a good drawer, but… You don't have to. She wanted me to find the morning. Lily's voice was steady. Steadier than it had been in days. So I'm going to find it. And I'm going to draw it. And then the book will be done. Ethan looked at his daughter. She was 8 years old. She was wearing dirty rabbit pajamas. She had a note in her pocket that said I need him to believe I can be more, and a drawing in her hands that said for Lily, who always finds the morning, and she was telling him that she was going to finish what her mother had started. Okay, he said. Okay. The days that followed were not easy. Ethan called Diane. Not to apologize, not yet, not in a way that would matter, but to tell her the truth. About the fight. About the things he'd said. About the role he'd played in the last 27 minutes of her daughter's life. Diane was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick. She never told me you fought. She wouldn't have. She was private about that stuff. About us. Ethan. I know. You broke her heart. I know. Diane was quiet again. Then, she loved you anyway. She loved you so much it made me angry sometimes. Like she'd given you something she should have kept for herself. Ethan closed his eyes. The phone was heavy in his hand. I know, he said again. Don't tell Lily, Diane said. Not everything. She's too young. She already knows we fought. She found a note. What did it say? He told her. Diane started crying. Not loudly, the way Sarah had cried, the quiet kind, the kind that was trying to hide. Bring her to see us, Diane said. This weekend. We'll make cookies. We'll look at old photos. We'll come, Ethan said. They did. The therapist started the following week. A woman named Dr. Park who had kind eyes and a calm voice and a box of tissues on every surface. Ethan sat in a chair that was too small for him and talked about guilt and shame and the things he should have done differently. Lily sat in a chair that was too big for her and drew pictures of foxes and birds and yellow scarves. Dr. Park asked questions. They answered them. The clock never ticked backward. The lie detector thing, the universe's strange punishment, the rule that had turned every evasion into a time bomb, faded over the following weeks. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just slowly. Mrs. Castellano came by with another casserole. How are you holding up? She asked. Not really, Ethan said. But I'm trying. The clock kept moving. The school called. When do you think you'll come back? They asked. I don't know yet, he said. I need help figuring that out. The clock kept moving. Lily asked him one night, sitting on the couch in front of the dark television. Do you think about Mom every day? Every day, he said. Some days softly. Some days so much I don't know what to do with it. The clock kept moving. The universe, it seemed, had decided he no longer needed to be forced to tell the truth. He was doing it on his own. They finished the book in spring. The Fox Who Carried the Morning, that was the title Lily chose, pulled from the words on the last page, the ones Sarah had written in her careful handwriting. They worked on it together, Ethan and Lily, sitting at the kitchen table where Sarah used to drink her cold coffee. Lily drew the pictures, not well, not the way Sarah would have drawn them, but with a kind of fierce determination that made Ethan's chest ache. He wrote the words, trying to channel Sarah's voice, trying to find the rhythm she would have used. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even good, not really. But it was finished. The small bookstore in downtown Portland agreed to host a reading. Not a launch, nothing so grand, just a quiet afternoon where friends and family could gather and remember and turn the pages of a book that should have been published under different circumstances. The day of the reading, it rained. Ethan stood in the back of the bookstore with a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking and watched the room fill up. Diane and her husband. Lily's teacher, Ms. Hartwell. Mrs. Castellano, wearing actual shoes instead of gardening clogs. A few of Sarah's old friends from college. A few of Ethan's colleagues from school. People he hadn't spoken to in months, people he'd been avoiding, people who had sent casseroles and cards and voicemails he'd never returned. Lily sat in the front row, wearing a yellow dress, the color of the bird in the book, the color of the scarf she'd worn when she was little. She was holding the ceramic fox Lily had made in kindergarten, the one with the broken ear, the one Sarah had kept on her desk. Ethan walked to the small podium at the front of the room. He looked at the audience, at the faces looking back at him, at the rain streaking the windows. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was steady. He hadn't been sure it would be. "This book was supposed to be Sarah's," he said. "She started it the day Lily was born. She worked on it for 8 years. She never finished it, not the way she wanted to, but she left enough behind that Lily and I could piece together what she was trying to say." He picked up a copy of the book. The cover was simple, a drawing of a fox and a bird sitting on a branch, watching the sun rise. Lily had drawn it. It was clumsy and uneven and absolutely perfect. "Sarah and I fought on the day she died," Ethan said. The room went very still. "We fought about this book, actually. About her going back to school to finish it. About whether we could afford it, whether we had the time, whether it was fair to Lily for her to be gone in the evenings. I said things I shouldn't have said. Things I will spend the rest of my life wishing I could take back." Diane was crying. So was Ms. Hartwell. So was Mrs. Castellano, who had known Sarah since she was a little girl. "I'm not telling you this because I want forgiveness," Ethan said. "I'm telling you this because Sarah asked me to tell the truth. She asked me to tell Lily that love doesn't mean never fighting. It means fighting and coming back. It means fighting and choosing each other anyway." He looked at Lily. She was watching him with Sarah's eyes, the same green, the same steadiness, the same quiet understanding. "Sarah didn't get to come back," he said. "She didn't get to choose. But Lily and I have. We've chosen to finish this book. We've chosen to remember her the way she really was, not as a saint, not as a ghost, but as a woman who loved fiercely and drew beautifully and sometimes got her feelings hurt by the people who were supposed to protect her." He opened the book to the first page. "Lily and I are going to read it now," he said. "If that's okay." No one objected. Lily came up to the podium and stood beside him. She was small, still 8, still wearing the yellow dress, but she held the ceramic fox like a talisman, like something that could protect her from the weight of all those eyes. Chapter 1, Ethan read. The fox woke before the sun. Her name was Fern, Lily added, because they'd practiced it that way, because they decided the fox deserved a name. And they read. They read about Fern the fox and Sunny the bird. They read about the forest and the river and the storm that separated them. They read about Fern's long journey through the dark, about the way she kept walking even when she couldn't see the path, about the way she carried the morning with her even when the night seemed endless. Lily read the last page by herself. And when the sun finally rose, she said, her voice clear and steady. Fern was there. She had always been there. She had carried the morning through the dark, and now the morning was here, and she was not alone. She closed the book. The room was quiet for a moment. Then people started clapping. Not politely, not the way people clap at things they feel obligated to clap for, but the way people clap when something has moved them, when something has reached into their chest and touched a part they'd forgotten was there. Lily looked up at Ethan. Did Mom like it? She asked. He almost said she would have loved it. That was what people said. That was what fathers said. That was what the old Ethan, the one who lied without thinking, the one who used comfort as a shield, would have said. But the old Ethan was gone. I think she would have complained about the cover, he said. The green is wrong. She would have wanted a warmer shade. Something that matched the trees in the forest. Lily stared at him. And then, Ethan said, I think she would have cried in the car where no one could see her. Because she was like that. She pretended to be tough about the things that mattered, and then she went somewhere private and felt them. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. It was a small laugh, surprised, almost reluctant, but it was real. It was the first real laugh Ethan had heard from her in months. The green is wrong, she said. I know. We should have used the one from the drawing. The one on the last page. I know. Lily looked at the book in her hands. At the cover. At the fox and the bird sitting on the branch, watching the sun rise. Mom would have fixed it, she said. Yeah, Ethan said. She would have. They stood in the doorway of the bookstore after everyone had gone. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking up, thin patches of blue showing through like glimpses of something that had been there all along. Dad, Lily said. Yeah. Do you think Mom knew? Before she died? That we would finish the book? Ethan thought about the studio. The watercolors. The note on the desk. The gray sweater with the hole in the elbow. I don't know, he said. But I think she hoped. Lily nodded. She tucked the ceramic fox into her jacket pocket, the one Sarah had sewn a patch onto, a tiny yellow bird, because Lily had asked for it and Sarah had never been able to say no to that face. Can we get ice cream? Lily asked. Ethan looked at her. At the yellow dress. At the book tucked under her arm. At the small, tired, hopeful expression on her face. Yeah, he said. We can get ice cream. They walked to the ice cream shop 3 blocks away. Lily held his hand, not because she was scared, but because she wanted to. Because 8-year-olds still held their father's hand sometimes, even after everything. The sun came out. The streets were wet and shining. And somewhere, in a kitchen that no longer existed, in a time that had been unmade and remade and unmade again, a woman in a gray sweater sat at a table with a cup of cold coffee and watched her family walk away. She was smiling. She had always been smiling. The clock on the wall ticked forward, normal and steady, like it had never done anything else.